All right, peace and much love. Zenaru here with message from the Minista, number 5, willpower. Today I want to talk about our power to will things into existence, our power to will things to happen. We can come up with an idea in our head or a feeling in our heart or a vision that we have, a spiritual vision that God gives our soul or an inspiration about something. And we have to will that into this reality here. We have to will that out of the world. And I believe it's a lost art in 2017 is willpower. It's something that our forefathers knew, something our ancestors knew, and it's something we need to reignite that passion. We need to reignite that ability to will things into existence for our very survival as a people. Because the idea now is give me convenience or give me death. Maybe it's not that extreme for everybody, but the World Wide Web is making things so easy. The research becomes so easy that very often people don't look into it from themselves outside of the internet. We just want things to fast food, fast meals, fast knowledge, fast relationships, and not really working on those things that we want to accomplish. And I want to just give a few examples from my own life, especially as an MC, and how that came to be. And also just give a few more examples of willpower that people know and see in their daily lives. So, to get started, I remember when I began my apprenticeship with the teacher, with the teacher KRS-One, in the Temple of Hip Hop. And I remember him sitting me down one-on-one and having one of our first heart-to-heart discussions about the future of what we saw. And he said to me, he said, so Zen, in the Temple of Hip Hop, you're required to master one of the 4 core elements. You're required to master breaking, MCing, graffiti art, or DJing. Which one are you going to master? And I remember just with so much confidence saying, yo, I'm an MC. I'm going to master MCing, teacher. And teacher was like, oh, word? Go ahead and spit something. And I didn't have nothing to spit. Like, I didn't have no rhymes written. I didn't have nothing memorized. I didn't know how to freestyle, like none of that. And I was 33 years old. And I remember him kind of chuckling to himself. And I thought he was laughing at me. And he's like, no, this is the perfect place for you to start. Is starting with nothing, starting from scratch, because you'll look back at yourself and you'll look back at this time and you'll be able to measure and know how you got here. And so I remember going, okay, so what's my first lesson, teacher, as an MC? Like what's the first lesson? And I was thinking he was going to be telling me how to rap on time, how to count bars, And so teacher's first lesson to me was, and this is a jewel, he says, Zen, for you to become an MC, you're going to have to give up your very desire to be an MC. And I was like, what? Like, that blew my mind for real. Like, give up my desire to MC. Like, how am I going to master this craft? How am I going to how am I going to become an MC if I give up my desire? And I'm glad he taught me that lesson and didn't give me the answer right away. He actually said this. I said, well, teacher, how do I give up my desire to be an MC? And he goes, well, sounds like a good chapter in your book. So, here I am, 11 years, 12 years later, whatever it is. And this is a chapter in my book. It's a willpower. It's so much more important than desire. Like, desire is very important to it's a motivator. We get inspired. We're like, wow, I could see myself as an MC. I could see myself on stage. But if you continually desire something, you never are it. You're just, the mind thinks, oh, I desire this. I'm becoming this. You never actually be it. And so this is where willpower comes in. I had to will myself to become an MC. I had to will myself to learn, to take the time to learn, to nurture the gift, to get through the hurdles, the obstacles, the doubters, the haters, all of that. I had to push my willpower had to push me through that. And mostly, where that willpower was is, as U.S. Anderson teaches. U.S. Anderson is a real dope metaphysician from the 1930s and 40s. He did a series of lectures and talks, and somebody had put those together in a book called 3 Magic Words. And what U.S. Anderson talks about in relationship to willpower is that willpower can only be applied to our thinking. And that's really deep because, I believe that, we think like if there's a major hurdle to overcome, we have to will, we're going to push this obstacle out of the way through willpower. But, really it's the mind that tells the body, keep pushing, keep pushing. It's a way of thinking that tells you to keep pushing forward. And it's willpower that when you rap the first time and there may be somebody who's hating on you, like, oh, you whack, you ain't this, you ain't that. It's willpower that's like, nah, you're whack, I'm dope. That's willpower talking. That's the way to see yourself through. It's a strength that we give ourselves. And I believe that nothing of value comes without the use of willpower. Willpower to me is like one of the ultimate forces in the universe. I believe that willpower is how love expresses itself. I believe that willpower is how greatness expresses itself. Let's take Michael Jordan, for example. There's a lot of great athletes, gifted athletes out there in the world. And at the time when Michael Jordan was winning all the championships, he had to go through a time where he was losing. He was losing to the Pistons. He was losing to the Celtics. He was losing to the Lakers. He was losing to, he was losing to those great teams that came before him. But he had an indomitable will. If he would have listened to the critics, like most people, you say Michael Jordan nowadays in 2017, and they think the greatest basketball player of all time, no questions asked. But like when you grew up watching Michael Jordan, like I did, like it wasn't like everybody thought he was the greatest of all time. I heard more people who hated Michael Jordan than who loved Michael Jordan. And had he listened to those critics, oh, he's just a great shooter, but he'll never be a champion. He don't have a champion mentality like Magic does. And so if Michael Jordan would have listened to those haters, he would have never become the greatest of all time. And I remember specifically watching his greatness one time. He had the flu. It was a championship game. It was either championship or it was the playoffs, and I remember he had the flu and he was sick, like he was going to pass out. He was like wobbling and he was shooting and scoring and playing defense. He was doing everything. And that was pure willpower. That was mind over matter. He willed himself and his team to win those games, or to win that game specifically. And I think Michael Jordan is a great example of that, because it takes willpower for anything truly worthy of your accomplishment to come into reality. The thing I want to say is that willpower, it builds faith and confidence in yourself. But even beyond the faith and confidence to get something done, willpower, it provides us with a certain character to automatically, switch it on. I think in 2017, a lot of, especially the younger generation who's had access to Google or the internet, doesn't realize how much willpower it took to research something back in the day. Like when I was growing up, then this is for those fortunate enough to have access to the World Wide Web or to the internet, which is a great tool for knowledge. But just as an example, say like in 1994, I heard this term Illuminati. The scary Illuminati. And I remember hearing this term and I was like, what does that mean? Like, what's the Illuminati? There's a cabal of ultra elite rich people running and making decisions for us. And the government's really not the government. They're not here for our benefit. They're here for their own. And I didn't believe it at first. I mean, it sounded so fantastical. And keep in mind, I didn't have the internet to research this. I didn't have that tool to go on to. And so my willpower had to kick in because I wanted to learn about this subject. It took my willpower. I had to talk to a lot of people. I'd be like, yo, have you ever heard this term Illuminati? And, people are like, what? That's crazy. What's that? I never heard of such a thing. Come across maybe somebody else. And I'd go to bookstores and try and find books about this subject. And they weren't in any mainstream bookstore you were going to find. And so I remember coming across this one guy's like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. You need to get the book, Behold the Pale Horse by William Cooper. And I was like, oh, there it is. The light went off. My willpower had paid off. And then I had to keep pushing. My willpower had to keep pushing to find that book, Behold the Pale Horse. I went everywhere. I drove all over the Bay Area looking for that book. I went to every mom and pop, used bookstore, new bookstore, you name it. I'd ask them. They couldn't order the book. It was out of print. They weren't able to get it. There's all kinds of reasons and stuff. And for me, that just made me want the book more. So, opposition is great for willpower. If you want to learn about a subject, or you want to become something or someone, that opposition is there to strengthen your willpower. So look at opposition as an opportunity. Look at obstacles as an opportunity to apply your willpower to overcome that. And so, I remember driving by this little bookstore one time, seeing this used bookstore out the corner of my eye in the middle of a work day. Pulled over, went into the bookstore, and lo and behold, a pale horse was in my hands. Oh! And I remember getting that book, and like I had to finish my work day, and like I was like trying to sneak it into the bathroom so I could read it real quick. It's fascinating information to me. Fascinating knowledge. And as I assimilated that knowledge, it gave me a new sight. I started seeing the way that the world was working. I started seeing how sinister some of these things were. And in 2017, like, we're under complete surveillance. But back in 1994, if you would have told everybody that we would be under complete surveillance in just less than 20 years, or a little over 20 years, I don't think anybody would have believed you. Maybe a few would have, but they were like, that's crazy talk. But now, now you can go on YouTube and type in the Illuminati, and you can get all kinds of information. You can have your mind blown overnight. You can spend 7-8 hours on that subject and get more information than you'll know what to do with. And the point of this is that it wasn't so easy back in 1994 to get that and to become that. Same with MCing back, like 2017. Even though you've got the internet, you've got access, you can type in how to freestyle, and somebody will teach you how to freestyle, or how to count bars, or how to record a verse. And there's YouTube videos for that. But you've still got to use your willpower to become that MC. Like, you can't take an MC pill and all of a sudden you're MCing. You're not Neo. You're not going to get something plugged into the back of your neck in the Matrix, and you're like, and then all of a sudden jujitsu. What's that? You've got to, like, if you want to become a black belt in jujitsu, you need willpower. You've got to be able to take the falls. You've got to be able to take the hits. You've got to be able to take all of that. You've got to overcome the pain. You've got to overcome the soreness, the stiffness, to become a master of jujitsu. That takes willpower. Anything in life of value takes willpower. And I believe that this is something that in 2017, especially, people don't want that. They don't want the obstacle to overcome. They just want it given to them. They just want it handed to them. They just want it to be easy. Fast food. I don't want to cook. I just want to go buy my meal. Oh, I don't want to have to even drive to get the good Indian food. I want to be able to take a package and throw it in hot water and have it in 5 minutes. And, not to dismiss everything modern as somehow weak or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of modern conveniences. Like, I'm right here on my cell phone talking to you over the rest of the world. So I think that the technology is great. I'm a big proponent of modern technology, but also not losing the sight, the willpower. When you think about the great structures, like maybe the Great Pyramids, or you think about something like the Iroquois Confederacy, like, you think about the willpower of a collective people that put that out into reality. I got a great example right here, the Gospel of Hip Hop. Like, we had to will this book into existence. Like I don't think everybody realizes, like, when I first came to the Temple of Hip Hop, we didn't have this book. I don't have a copy of it here, but I've got a paperback copy that the teacher printed up for me at Kinko's. And even that took me willpower. I had to be a student of the teachers before he would even hand any of us a copy of that Gospel of Hip Hop. And after 2 years of being his student, I remember sitting there in a Red Lobster with Mondo 1, and the teacher comes in. We were waiting for him, and he comes in, and he hands us both our copies of the Gospel of Hip Hop printed from Kinko's. And I remember just this sense of pride and accomplishment in myself, and so grateful that I had been given and gifted this knowledge, and that I had earned this knowledge. It made me care for that knowledge even more. It made me love that knowledge even more. It made me protective of that knowledge even more, because I had to will my character to be worthy of that knowledge, for the teacher to hand that knowledge to me. And the same goes with this book. We got the paperback books, and we would visualize it. The three of us, Mondo 1, myself, and the teacher, would visualize this book being a reality. And, a lot of times we had no idea how it was going to come into existence. And There's a great cartoon that talks about willpower like that. It's like my idea, and it goes point A to point B, and it's a straight line. And it says the universe's idea, and it shows point A to point B, but it's a squiggly line going all over the place. And that's willpower. Like, you've got to be able to get through all the obstacles, through all the mazes, through all the squiggly lines of people to get to that point where you want to be, where you want to see yourself. You got to will yourself into existence. And you know, that willpower will overcome depression. Willpower will overcome fear. Willpower will overcome anxiety, animosity. You know, willpower will overcome inconsciousness. Inconsciousness is overcome by willpower. Like, it's like, the thing about willpower is it's like a chick inside of a shell, you know, a baby chick, who's going to be a chicken one day. It's inside of this shell, inside of this egg. And it has to will itself out of that egg. It has to push its little bones and wings and stuff and start cracking the egg. It's got to push its beak through. And that coming through the egg, that breaking through the egg, is what empowers that chick. So when it does enter the world, after it's broken through this egg, it's strong enough, its bones are strong enough to just withstand the weight of its mother sitting on it. To the weight of moving its muscles and things. Like, its muscles were being formed inside that egg, and it took willpower for that chick to break through the egg. Depression is like that eggshell for a lot of people. I've suffered depression on and off. You know, I was even clinically diagnosed with it. And I remember when this woman's like, well, you suffer from depression. And she had like her little checklist. And I was like, whoa, like, I didn't realize I suffered from depression. Although, yeah, it makes sense. And I remember she wanted to put me on some medication. And I was like, I ain't going on no medication. And so what would happen is, once I would start getting depressed inside myself, once I would start feeling depressed, I would will myself to feel better, because I knew the science behind it. I knew the science of mind behind it. I know that when we're depressed, we have thoughts and feelings that create chemical releases in our body, in our psyche, in our mind, that cause us to feel more depressed. But the exact opposite is true. When we have joy in our heart, it creates other chemicals in our body. It releases certain endorphins, and we're able to overcome that. And so depression is great. I mean, I'm not saying if you're suffering from some severe depression or something, you know, get the help you need. But no matter what choice you make, it's going to take willpower to get through that depression. It's going to take willpower to get through that anxiety. When I used to go out on tour, in the very beginning, I'd be driving around these cities. I'd be so nervous. I'd be like shook driving around New York City, having to get the teacher to a show on time. And it's like 1 a.m. or, I mean, it's like 11 p.m. or whatever time we're driving to or from the show. You can't get lost. Didn't have GPS. I wasn't used to that kind of pressure when I was driving. But now it's like no big deal, man. I can drive anywhere. When we were in Barcelona last year, I was driving in Barcelona everywhere, 11 hours, 12 hours. And like, that was willpower, because once you got the idea that, I will accomplish this, not I think I can accomplish this, or I think I can become that. It's like, I will do this. I will become that, or I will this into existence. That willpower is very, very powerful. Something that we teach at the Temple of Hip Hop is that your promise is on the other side of your fear. And, so if you're afraid to become an MC, like you have stage fright, or you're afraid of what people are going to think about you. These are real fears that people face every day for whatever they want to become in life. You're afraid what others are going to think about you. You're afraid what this person's going to say. You're afraid what this person's going to say. You might be afraid what you think about yourself. But if you've got a strong willpower, if you've got strong will, you will push yourself through that pain, through that shell, and you'll come to the other side of that fear. Like a butterfly, before it comes out of the cocoon, I'm sure it's afraid of what's going to happen. A butterfly is afraid of this world, but that fear pushes. It's like, what? Fuck that shit. I'm going to push myself out and become this butterfly. I'm going to push myself out and become this chick, like this chicken. Like willpower is like driving force, and don't forget about it, man. I mean, if there's anything you want to accomplish in life that takes, like, anything that's worth it, it's going to take willpower. The entire divine performance takes willpower. The entire H law health, love, awareness, and wealth, to have those in our lives consistently, it takes willpower. It takes willpower to have strong, good health. It takes willpower to have love, to be loved, and to be loved. It takes willpower to be aware, to get knowledge, to gain wisdom and insight. And it takes willpower to acquire wealth, and to know what true wealth is beyond just money. Like, what is wealth? And which actually gets me to what I wanted to read from the Gospel of Hip Hop. For those of you who have a copy, the Fourth Overstanding, the H Law, you can open up to page 204 and to 205. And I'm not going to read all of this. I've just got a couple points that I've highlighted that I wanted to read today. But if you've got a copy of the Gospel of Hip Hop after you watch this video, I highly suggest you read pages 204 to 205, starting with paragraph 16, and just read that to the end of 205. This talks about willpower and how hip hop is willed into existence. And I just wanted to leave this on a few of these words from the teacher from the Gospel of Hip Hop, which was willed into existence. God's work is God's will. Here, we observe that spiritual strength is found in one's mastery of one's will. Spiritual strength is found in one's mastery of one's will. It is the will that resists temptation. It is the will that seeks God. It is the will that pushes you and urges you onwards towards your completion. It is the will that achieves goals and manifests visions. All of these are possible with a strong will, and strength of will is produced by uniting your will with the will of God. Okay, so let's just stop there for a second. That's really important, is because, through all of that time, through willing the Gospel of Hip Hop into existence, through willing myself to be the MC that I saw myself originally, to will myself to be the minister, to will myself to do these videos, to will myself to learn about and find, behold a pale horse, for Michael Jordan to will, I can't speak for Michael Jordan, but I can speak for myself and say that God was that force. Like, God was that force behind my willpower. God was the source of my willpower to accomplish all of those things. Because I would go to pray to God. I'd be like, yo, God, man, I'm feeling like I kind of want to give up right now. And God would be like, nah, you ain't giving up. You go out there. Are you my child or not? Because I've given you a divine blessing. I've given you willpower. Now go put that to use. And if God tells you to put something to use, you better put that to use, or you will not know peace. Like, if you're denying God's will, you will not know peace until you are in alignment with God's will. So I'm going to continue on that. Will is spiritual energy. Check it out. Will is spiritual energy, and it requires spiritual management. Willpower begins with an attitude. I will is forward movement, but I won't is also forward movement. The first, I will, affirms the strength to proceed into a new experience. The second, I won't, affirms the strength to remain in the same condition. Neither is good or bad, but one, I will, moves you forward to achieve, while the other, I won't, moves you forward as you are. So this is very important. Like I remember, like they're both very important. Like, I will and I won't. I will not do that. So say for instance, depression comes. I'm feeling depressed. I just want to go and watch some Netflix instead of working on my rhymes, or I want to go and, go drink instead of working on my rhymes. I will not go drink. I will not sit here and waste my time on Netflix. I will spend my time writing. I will spend my time rapping. I will spend my time mastering my craft. See, that I won't or I will not is a very important tool also when we're talking about willpower. I will not go there because it's not good for my health. I will not go there because that person isn't good for my environment, isn't good for my craft or mastering my craft. So remember that I will and I will not are both willpower. It's the same force. One, I will, moves you forward. One, I will not, keeps you where you are. And neither is right or wrong or better or worse. They're both very important tools, because if I will not go there, so I will be able to produce this album, that's very important. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead to paragraph 23 since we're running out of time on the video. Know this: hip-hop spiritual lifestyle must be willed into existence, because technically we are the first of our holy nation. And those hip-hoppers that are to come after us Future hip-hoppers will have to follow the same techniques in their time, because even then they shall be the first in their environment to seriously commit to such a practice. Okay, word. And that's why I'm saying this to the future, to the younger hip-hoppers out there, or even to the older heads who's getting into the spiritual hip-hop lifestyle. Like, that willpower at the beginning of your studies of this book, put willpower, like write it out. Willpower in a spot you could see it every day, over your bed, on your steering wheel, on your altar, wherever you're at in life. Put a sign that says willpower to remind yourself, to remind the mind that willpower will accomplish that job, that will accomplish that task. And you know, I would say that as a closing example on this is that when you hit these obstacles, like for me, not only did I want to become an MC who could rock a party live or could freestyle, I wanted to become, I required in my life to become an MC that was able to produce music. And so the first obstacle was I didn't have the money to pay for studio time. I remember paying like studio time and then having really nothing to show for it. I thought, well, because my willpower is so activated, I thought, well, I can go out and buy a mic for cheaper than studio time, and I can go and get this computer program for my computer. I will learn to record myself. And, you know, night after night, I'm learning to rap. And then an hour later, I'm learning to record. You know, it took willpower to make those albums. And now here it is, 2017. I think I've done like 7 or 8 albums, and I'm working on 3 right now. Like, that's willpower. And it becomes such an ally and so easy after a while. Like, I'm pushing myself on the new albums. I want my flow to be better. I want my delivery to be better. I want my voice to sound better. I want the quality of my recording to be better. Like, I want to be better than, not even want, I'm required to be better than my last albums. I'm required to increase my skill. It's still willpower being used, but I remember like my first album, it took me like 2.5 years to get the Way of Peace and the Revelationary out. And you know, in my mind, I thought it was a straight line. Like I was going to go, okay, I'm going to record and then I'm going to have this master album. And nope, the universe had all of this. I had to go through all of these crazy loops and turns and twists and turns and things I wasn't ready for. Mixing, mastering, recording, like all of these different parts of that. I had to overcome that to produce my own albums. And that's willpower once again. But that willpower instilled in me a confidence and a faith in my abilities. And that faith and that confidence carries over to anything I do. To anything I do. Whatever it is in life that you need to do, use your willpower. Use that power of will to push yourself into that. And so the required reading is the last part, 206. I just said the page. Oh, actually, I got them marked still. Pages 204 and 205 in the Gospel of Hip Hop talks about willpower. That's the 4th overstanding, the H law. Very fitting that willpower. It's not by accident that we talk about willpower before we talk about accomplishing the H law in your life: health, love, awareness, and wealth. U.S. Anderson's book, 3 Magic Words, great book for that. And I just saw a movie. I was thinking about the subject of willpower, and I came across this cheesy movie called The Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds. And you know, it was like one of the worst comic book movies ever made. I remember seeing it and not liking it. I was like, I'll give it a second chance. And that movie was deep. Like the power of the Green Lantern, his ring, the ring of power, the harnesses, like this universal energy is willpower. And I was so thankful to God. I was like, see how that happened, God? See how God did that? Like I wanted to speak about willpower and overcoming willpower. Not overcome, but using willpower to overcome obstacles like fear. And then just randomly came across this movie that spoke about the power of will over fear. And that's the message, man. Love yourself. Use your willpower. Love those around you. And we will accomplish great things in our lives and beyond. Hip Hop City will be built through willpower. We will use our power of will to create Hip Hop City. That's my word. There it is. Peace and much love. Zenaru 2017.